Hello, dear friends and listeners of the Vitality Hub podcast. This is me, Elena Kundro, coming back with another episode to enrich your life. And today's episode, I will share my experience about Vipassana. As some of you may know or not know, I've been to Vipassana a month and a half ago. That was my first time in Vipassana meditation retreat for 10 days. Though a lot of my family and friends have done these retreats before. And surprisingly, nobody shared these things with me. That's why I decided I want to share what I learned so that you could prepare yourself for your Vipassana retreat, or you could just get some insights from what I learned. And this episode is for those who are considering enrolling into one of those retreats, or who are just curious to know, what is it all about? Is it just sitting in silence for 10 days? Well, let me tell you up front, that was the easy part. But I just want to make this episode not necessarily about the whole philosophy behind Vipassana, because there's a lot about it on the internet. I want to share practical things that nobody talks about. Because before going to Vipassana, I Googled quite a bit. How to prepare, what to know, just some practical things, and nobody was talking about this. So hopefully this will provide some insight. So in this episode, I'm not going to go into the philosophy behind Vipassana, but just an introduction. I have a short text from the website, Vipassana website, where you can register for the retreats, what it is. So Vipassana, which means to see things as they really are, is one of the India's most ancient techniques of meditation, and it was rediscovered by Gautama Buddha more than 2,500 years ago and was taught by him as a universal remedy for universal ills. So it's non-sectarian technique, and it's a way of self-transformation through self-observation, basically observing physical sensations of your body to discover the truth. And it might sound a bit out there, like what does that even mean? But you have to try it to really understand what it is. That's why I decided not to go too deep into how the technique works, because only once you apply it, you can understand what it is like. Because I had friends and family, my mom, my brother, my close friends went to Vipassana and they've been trying to explain it to me. And I kind of knew that it's just observing your body, your breath, how it inflows into your body, and then just scanning throughout your whole body. But I didn't quite grasp it until I tried it. So the first part of this episode, I want to go over my experience during the Vipassana. Then I'll go into my experience after, because that is the most shocking thing for me that nobody else talked about or is still talking, that after I did my Vipassana and I encountered these positive and negative side effects, if you may will, and I started talking with other Vipassana meditators, and they could really relate. So that's why it was surprising that nobody was talking about it before. And then I'm going to touch upon who is it for, who is it not really for, and advice for those who are planning of entering a Vipassana retreat. What to know and what would have helped me out if I would know it if I knew it before. I'm just trying to think how not to go into too much detail, because those 10 days, even though you just sit for 11 hours a day, were quite eventful, because every single day brought something new. There were so many realizations, but just the key things that I want to share is basically every single day for 10 days, I was thinking to myself, this is the first and the last time I'm doing this, never again. I really did not enjoy this experience. It was just uncomfortable, it was painful, more on that later. But the funny thing is that as the last day came about and we were about to go back home, I looked back on those 10 days and realized actually it wasn't that bad. I would repeat it. And that's the interesting part about our human brain, is that we usually judge things from our current perspective. That's why always when implementing new habits, you should end a new, like for example, an exercise routine with something pleasurable, because then looking back, your whole exercise routine doesn't seem so bad. So I guess something like similar to that happened to me at Vipassana retreat, that the whole 10 days were torture, and not really torture, but I was torturing myself in a way. And at the last day, I was like, that was quite okay. So that was very interesting to me. And I remember when we were already allowed to speak at the 10th day, and everybody was sharing how amazing it is, and I was just feeling agitated. So all the time when I was meditating, I just wanted this to be over. I wanted to go back home, to see my partner, to go to my bed and have my food. But when it was over, I actually didn't want to go. I wanted to go to see my partner, but I wanted to stay and meditate more. I didn't feel like I was ready for the social life, and that's the part that I will want to touch more about my experience after, because that was probably the hardest part. But yeah, I was feeling quite agitated during the whole experience, and it was very uncomfortable. You have to, so picture this. It's 10 days, silence, you can't talk to anyone, you can't even look into each other's eyes, no contact, no phones, no books, no notebooks. I probably should have mentioned that earlier for those who are not familiar with Vipassana. You can't really do anything apart from meditation. Can't really even do physical exercise like out there. You can just do it in your room. That's what I was doing, because otherwise my body would be in much more pain than it was. So a lot of people, when they hear about Vipassana, they think, oh, it's just a silent retreat where you just, enjoying yourself in your silence. Well, actually, it's hard work. You have to sit for 11 hours a day and meditate, constantly focusing. You can't really wander off and into visualizations and so on, because that's what I thought that I will do if I get too bored of always focusing. But no, really, you can't do that, because I really wanted to give a fair try of the Vipassana technique. I dedicated myself to doing everything by instructions. So that was really hard. It was hard for the focus that it was required, but more so for the pain. I don't know if you've tried to sit without moving for, an hour, because before Vipassana, I couldn't sit for 20 minutes without moving for a meditation. And there, after the third day or something like that, you have to sit for 1 hour intervals without moving. And to sit with all this pain, I remember during Vipassana, I was thinking, when I get back, I will find a doctor, I will figure out what's wrong with my back, as it was hurting so bad. And the point in Vipassana is to sit with all of that pain and observe it. And that is the most invaluable lesson for life, because pain is unavoidable, but suffering is, because you can be in pain and not suffer. Basically, you're training your ability to be with pain, to be with discomfort, because it was not just physical pain from sitting, but it was also hunger, it was heat, I was constantly sweating, and there were no AC or fans in the meditation hall. There were flies, and hunger, because the last meal you have, lunch, is at 11:30 a.m. So, and then at 5 p.m. you get like a banana and a tangerine. That was the case at least here in Bali, but they do have the same schedule in all the centers. Probably I should have mentioned that as well, that it's very unified, all the Vipassana retreats that are taught by Goenka. You just get his chanting, his videos that were recorded like 30 years ago. So it would be unified, the teachings. And for me, another big discomfort was gut issues, because I don't really do well with gluten. And I kind of forgot about that, because I don't have gluten in my life, and I just didn't know that was an issue, really. Kind of, that kind of thing. And there, every morning, they were serving the same porridge, and I was just eating it, thinking it's oats. But 3 days in, I couldn't figure out what's wrong with my belly, so I just went and asked at the kitchen staff, what is happening? What are you putting in that porridge? And turns out it was with wheat. So that explained a lot, and I wasn't prepared for medication, So basically that really was causing a lot of pain and bloating and just discomfort in my gut throughout the whole 10 days. And after Vipassana, I had to recover for quite a while to get back to my normal gut health. Yeah, so the discomfort part. Then you can really meet with all your inner demons. And it's just so clear how your mind works. You can't escape it. I could see all the judgment that I had for myself and for others, all the need to control, to life be a certain way. Basically, if you want to get to know your mind and what's inside of your brain, that's the perfect place to hear all of that. I remember I was constantly thinking I'm not a good enough meditator, comparing myself to other girls who are sitting so straight and always are meditating in a hole, because sometimes there was the option to go to meditate in your room, because in Bali everyone has their own individual rooms. So you could either meditate in a hall with everyone else, or you could go to your room. And going to your room meant that you can lay down when your back hurts, rest for a bit, and then sit back up. So I was using that opportunity to rest my back, and I kind of felt guilty for it, that I'm not being the best meditator. So that is a pattern from my whole life. I always wanted to be the best in school and university, everywhere I go. So yeah, just things like that really come to surface. Another interesting thing was that I always need 8 hours of sleep. And there I was okay with 4 hours, 5 hours, because you go to bed at 9 and you wake up at 4. I mean, actually, the last meditation you finish at 9, so you go to bed at like 9:30. Depends on how fast you can shower. Yeah, so that was like a superpower to me. I don't have to sleep anymore. I remember the last day, and the further along in the course I was, the less sleep I needed. And the last few days I was sleeping like just a few hours, and I was just laying there and meditating the whole night in bed, and I felt so rested. And also the need for food decreased going along, and that was the pitfall that I fell into. But more on that after I get out of the Vipassana. Now the fun part is that I don't know if you've ever had mushrooms or LSD, but you get some hallucinations, and sometimes it feels that you can just ask the universe anything and you get an answer. So I had the same feeling in Vipassana. I remember it was day 5, and I was struggling up until then. And on day 5 or day 4, I don't remember exactly now because you can't write it down, I felt like I'm on a mushroom trip. I was having hallucinations and everything was so interesting. I was talking to animals and just hearing all kinds of things, and my body became one big mass of particles, and all these kind of experiences that you can experience on a mushroom trip. Not that I've done so many mushroom trips, but you get the idea. But then the thing is, I thought that, oh wow, if this is how the rest of the days are going, I'm in for a treat. But that was just one day, because I allowed myself that day to get into the hallucinations. And that's what I realized, that I can allow myself to go into this hallucinative world and experience all these kind of things, but then I'm not really with my body. So then the rest of the days, I was trying to get back to the technique, to the body scan, and it wasn't as prominent, though as soon as my mind would wander, I would get all the visuals in full glory. I remember my mind was so creative, and any sound I could hear, it would just make up visuals, because you're with your eyes closed at least 11 hours a day, because even if you're in your room, you're still meditating, and even doing the lay down breaks, you're still with your eyes closed. And because you don't have that much visual stimuli, your mind just goes wild. And that was a true insight for me, how creative I can be, how creative my mind can be when I'm not constantly stimulating myself with all the social media and everything else that we have in our lives. And with all of that came a lot of insights about my life. I found forgiveness for people I was still holding grudge onto, because I saw a perspective, and that's when I realized what true forgiveness really is. It is that perspective, because when you don't have perspective, I can just, in my mind, try to conjure up some rational explanation why that person did this or that, why they are that way. But feeling it is a completely different thing. That's why I'm so pro all the therapeutic psilocybin or other psychedelic trips, because you can really embody those truths. Like everything is love and all these kind of cliche things that we all hear and kind of understand, but to feel it is a completely different level. So for me, that was with forgiveness. To see that perspective was very liberating. So I feel like I could talk for hours and hours, but I don't want to make this too long. But basically, the first chanting that you hear, I was trying not to laugh. It was very funny. But after a while, all the songs that were playing in my head disappeared, and all that was chanting. So if you go to Vipassana and you hear Goenka chant the first time, I feel you. It was funny to me too, but yeah, trust me, after a while you'll start loving it, especially after the strong sittings where you can't move and he chants at the end, and then you know that you only have like 5 minutes left and then you can move. It was like honey to my ears. So basically I really enjoyed the part where I don't have to talk to anyone. I can just be in my own space because I'm just naturally introverted and I just like being with myself. So that's the part that was very easy for me, but might not be for others who really need that social connection. And particularly one lady that was in Vipassana with me said that that was the hardest for her because she really wants to be with someone all the time. But for me, that was no issue. It was something that I really was looking for and longing for. So now the shocking part to me was my experience after, because while I was in Vipassana, I couldn't notice big differences because you're so isolated from the outside world. You're in this bubble where everybody's meditating, super calm, super quiet, super slow, and not stimulating. So when I got back to the real world, only then I could notice how different I was behaving. And situations that used to trigger me before was of no agitation or triggering at all. In particular, sometimes when I go to the gym and there's this body pump class and I don't have any weights left because somebody took more than maybe than they need or something like that, or it was overbooked, then I would get frustrated, like, how is this like this? And I remember this time I went to the class and it was overbooked. I didn't have any weights that I needed, but there was not a slight irritation inside of me. So that was very interesting to me. Like, oh, okay, I can feel like this. And I remember when I came back, my partner was saying that he's never seen me so relaxed. And actually, I don't think I have ever been so relaxed and so at ease and so at peace as when I came back from the Vipassana. I remember just walking in the rice fields and thinking, is this how you can feel? Like, this is wonderful. So yeah, super happy, super relaxed. That was all the best things. But then soon rushed in the negative aspects, which I was not aware of and that were quite shocking. So that's what actually was the main thing why I wanted to make this video, to warn you, to give perspective on what might come so you would be prepared and you would not face maybe the same challenges that I did. In Vipassana, you kind of give up all of your thinking brain to structurize your day. What do I need to do now and this or that, and making decisions, because everything is pre-decided for you. You have your daily routine, you get a gong, and whenever you hear a gong, you go meditate. So that was very simple. That's why I lost the structure. When I got back to the real world, there's no gong for me. I just wake up, and because I'm not used to thinking what I need to do at every single moment, I found myself a bit lost in my daily routines. I couldn't keep up with any of the routines. The only thing I was trying to do is just meditating in the morning. And for the first few mornings, I succeeded, but then life happened and I fall off. And on those days when I didn't meditate, I noticed such a huge difference in how I was feeling. And that's when a spiraling down began to happen. That was, I guess, one of the challenges. And as well, because you're so detoxified from all the social media, and once you get back to it, you have the access. You don't actually want it or need it at first, but because it was designed to hook you in so well, oh boy, that really lured me in And because I didn't have that structure or things to do, because I intentionally made the first week after I came back from Vipassana not really scheduled with any clients or any work, to allow me to have that period of time where I can get back to the real life and reintroduce myself to all these things. But yeah, I remember social media was just really hard to limit. Okay, still going strong. So I had to impose some outside boundaries around it, like making my phone black and white, like putting in time restrictions in the app itself. So that helped, but yeah, that was the hard part. And when I talked with others who did Vipassana, they had similar thing about the structure and social media, and just it was very hard to get rid of that temptation. Then another thing was me losing all of my identities, because before I was, I learned how to function in this world. I had my business, my clients, constantly producing my content. I actually posted the first episode of my podcast the day that I left Vipassana. So I was in always this constant production mode and doing my courses and teachings and constantly learning. And after Vipassana, I just really kind of deconditioned myself from all of that. And when I came back, I knew how good I could feel, how relaxed I could feel. And that's why it was even harder, because I didn't know how to balance these two modes. It's not necessarily a negative thing, because it's just something that was apparent in my life, how I was and what was not serving for me and how I needed to readapt. But it was certainly one of the biggest challenges, and still is actually to this day. This whole month and a half I've been trying to figure out my relationship to social media and to content and to production and having my own business, and really contemplating even giving it all up, because I realized how much I valued that sense of peace and relaxation in my body. So if you're not ready for a whole life crisis, maybe Vipassana is not for you. No, I'm joking, actually. Vipassana is great for reconsidering all of that and really knowing what's true, because I've been pondering about this months before Vipassana. It's just that in Vipassana you really have the time to decondition from your old ways of behaving. And because when I first arrived, I was always still thinking what I need to do, where I need to go, blah, 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 constantly this chatter in my mind. And at the end of it, it was just silence. Nothing to do, nowhere to be, nothing to prove, defend, or any other thing. And yeah, when I got back, I just didn't know how to function in this modern world and still produce and create and work with clients and advance in my career and have all of that inner peace. So I'm still trying to figure that out, setting boundaries for myself. But yeah, that really caused a lot of turmoil. And adding to that was actually the whole kind of pointlessness for striving and working. And when I talked with my fellow meditators, everybody agreed on that after Vipassana, it just seems like the meaning is different than it was before. And last two things, so one of them being social life. After being in solitude for so long, it was really hard for me to reintegrate in social aspects. So if you go to Vipassana, really allow that time for yourself to slowly introduce yourself to social circles and people, because it can be overwhelming. And lastly, because as I mentioned in Vipassana, I wasn't really sleeping much and I didn't really need it, and I had a lot of energy and I was feeling great. But when I came back, I was still sleeping the same hours that I did in Vipassana, because I thought, it just happened to be. I wasn't really, because before I was very diligent about my nighttime schedule and my sleeping hours, and after Vipassana I was like, life is beautiful, no need to worry about nothing. And yeah, so I wasn't sleeping that much and just enjoying my nighttime with my partner, and then in the morning I would wake up still at 3-4 to meditate. And after 4 days of that, I just got sick. And that was a sign for me that actually my body cannot take it. And that showed me that you cannot really expect to have a normal life with all the social aspect of it and still need that much sleep. At least that was my experience. So I wish I slept more, because it took me time to recover, because my body just really got dysregulated from that irregular sleep and sleep deprivation, which I didn't even feel. Okay, so now finishing off almost, who is Vipassana for? Well, actually, it is quite for everyone, I would say, because before I wanted to go to Vipassana for already 7 years, and I already got in at one point, but then COVID happened and so on and so on. I applied 2 more times, but something would get in the way, and who knows, maybe that was meant to be, because I just needed to wait for my time. But as well, others would talk me out of it, saying that Vipassana is not really for women because you're not supposed to be in your head so much, you should embody. But I don't think those people who say that really know what Vipassana is about, because Vipassana is about embodying. You're always being in your body, observing every single detail. I spent so much time focusing on all parts of my body, external and internal, that at the end of it, I could feel where my eyelash was growing. I could feel every single pore, every single hair on my body. I was so embodied, more than I've ever been. So that's, for me, a true somatic practice. You're just scanning all your body. Whenever there's pain, tension, you stay with that and give it space until it dissolves. And I just love that about it. Those who know internal family systems, working with parts, or for example, parts hypnotherapy, all the modalities that I really love and find super useful, I found that Vipassana has a lot of it. It's just framed in a different way. Because in internal family systems, you talk with those parts. And there's certain aspects. So in somatic coaching and somatic therapy, there's always also talking with those parts. Same as hypnotherapy, all slightly different, but still, you are engaging. And in Vipassana, you're just observing. So it's a bit different. And that's why I find actually internal family systems, somatic therapy, and parts hypnotherapy more effective approaches to accept your whole parts, all your shadows and all the discomfort. But Vipassana, I feel like it's the skill behind it, because you have to know how to feel it, which for me before was quite hard. That's why I really wanted to go to Vipassana, to get a better sense for my body. Yeah, so Vipassana is for those who want to develop more focus, more awareness of their mind, of their body, more calmness, more peace, and yeah, just more happiness. Because basically Vipassana is teaching you that everything is fleeting, nothing is permanent, and it's anicca, anicca, anicca. And anicca means that this too shall pass, basically. And that gives a lot of freedom. But who is Vipassana not for? I would say those who have some serious health issues and who cannot sit for an hour, because it's just going to be really painful then. Or you can even damage your body if you persist. And those who still want to go to Vipassana and have those health issues, maybe you can sit on a chair, but you still have to sit. You can't lay down. That's their main thing. You have to sit. So that, and then also those who have schizophrenia or have tendencies for that. I remember on the 5th day when I started having those hallucinations and seeing how ants are talking to me and all the leaves, the whole world felt like I was like, oh my God, am I getting some mental issues here, like schizophrenia or something? Because that was in my family. So if you're afraid of that, maybe consult with someone, because I know there was one instance where a woman went mental after Vipassana because, she was just too much into it. And there was another guy that I talked to, and he did 10 days and also fasting the whole time, and it was just too much. You can't really sense the reality anymore after that experience. So you have to know the level that you can go to. Okay, so now the practical things, what I wish I knew before going to Vipassana and nobody told me. First thing is be ready to apply at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. is when the applications open on their website at local time where you're planning to be to do your Vipassana sit, because the centers are all over the world, and I would suggest searching for the center that you want to go to and researching a bit about it. How are the facilities and so on? Because, for example, my mom went to Lithuania, to the Vipassana meditation in Lithuania, and she told me that you had to live with 5 other people in the room. And for me, that would just be a deal breaker. And here in Bali, you have your own room. So for me, that was a key priority. That's why I decided to do it here. Then there's a tricky thing about the application. I don't even know how to put it, but basically when you're applying, they're asking if you've been practicing any meditation techniques or you've done any psychedelics. And if you say yes for the psychedelics, they will not accept you. For example, my friend wrote that she is doing theta healing and they still accepted her, but they were kind of questioning her and just saying that this is the last time they accept her, that kind of thing. And I was just like, what? That's crazy. Then my other friend who already did Vipassana once and now she applied to serve, and she did MDMA like half a year ago, and they did not accept her to serve because she did that. So you have to be aware of that, and that's up to you, but yeah, just keep that in mind. Then, this is an important one, the weather. So really look into the weather of the center where you're going to, because that will require you different set of clothes. For example, my mom's experience was that in Lithuania it was so cold, she was freezing, so she would have needed to take way more clothes than she did. And for me, it was so hot, I had to always do my laundry by my hands because I was always sweating. So I wish I took more clothes so that I wouldn't have to do laundry as much, because I don't really have that many breaks, and yeah, it was just frustrating. So look into the weather and the facilities of the center. Then bring a watch. Because even though there is a gong telling you where to go, what to do, it's always nice to have a watch and to know that you have half an hour and you can still take a shower and so on. So I almost didn't take my watch, but I'm so glad I did, because it was a lifesaver for me. Because sometimes I wake up, at 2 a.m. in the morning, and to know what time it is, I would have to get out of my room, go to the dining hall, which is like, okay, maybe not 5 minutes, but like 3 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever. But still I have to wake up, get up, get dressed, just to see the time, because there was no watch in my room. So yeah, bring a watch and also a yoga mat. Technically, they don't allow you to do yoga there because it's a religion considered to be a spiritual practice. But you need to exercise. You need to keep stretching yourself, because otherwise you'll be in so much pain. Because from sitting so much, you really need to move your body. So a yoga mat will really serve you. I basically just had my yoga mat all the time laid out, because I was just using it in every single break. And some tips about meditation positions. So before you go to your 10-day meditation retreat, find some positions, like 2-3 positions you can rotate between at home. Then what can be very useful for that is a meditation stool or a meditation chair with a backrest. And actually the latter one saved me huge, because I have a back issue and I asked them for the backrest, and it really helped me. I don't think I could have survived without it, because even with that my back was hurting, so without it I can't even imagine. But I know that at some locations they don't have, so you can also research if your center has that. If not, buy yourself either a meditation stool or a meditation chair with a backrest, because that can make your experience a whole lot more pleasurable. And the last thing I want to share is to follow the instructions as they are given, because in the first few days I didn't really believe in the exact technique per se, and I was still like, oh, whatever, I'll just do a bit of this, a bit of that. And actually everything has a purpose, why you have to first focus here, then here, because you would understand when you go through the whole 10 days. Everything has a purpose, why it is taught in in that exact sequence. And the evening discourse is really helpful. So before you go, I would advise to even watch some Goenka documentaries to get familiarized with him and his personality and the story behind it. Because the more you know about it, the more appreciation you can have for the technique. So I'm sure I could have gone on and on and on about my experience and my learnings, because that was quite a lot actually, and still to this day I can feel the effects. Prepare yourself to do this full 10 days. Commit to see what it would be like if you completed the whole 10 days, because I wanted to leave every single day. But because I had this commitment that this is the first and last time I'm doing this, I just want to see what this is all about, I gave it a fair try and it was really worth it. Yeah, so that is for me now. If you have any questions, let me know either on social media or comment sections, and see you in the next episode.